and had on top of that as well a fashion show, trying to visualize, again, good footage for the press, to visualize what all these, fluffy ideas can come into and actually be real garments. And some of them might be, shown to your viewers right now. What the sustainable fashion industry is about is to find new innovations and new solutions. And on the runway, we presented fashion made by 20 new gen designers of the Nordic countries, who have all been given the task of working in new fibers, milk fiber or crab fiber or bamboo, or there's actually almost no limit to what technology today can turn into a fiber. I still can't grasp how you can make milk into a fiber that you can spin a thread and make it into a fabric, but you can. And the way they do it is less consuming of water and energy, and in that sense it's a very important point in terms of environmental issues.
How can you communicate with consumers about that? I mean, the fashion industry is huge and there's potential for it to really make a difference. How can you communicate this to consumers?
I think at the beginning, this hasn't to do with marketing or communication. This has to do with hard work. And I think the industry will have a long way to go before we can even claim to be sustainable. But it's never too late, and a little step is better than nothing in this sense. So right now, I think to begin with, it's to do with sharing knowledge and having a community amongst fashion industry companies where they can share and help each other in this, because none of the companies can do this on their own. And the production takes place in third world countries, and if we're going to help those countries to accommodate our needs, we need to pool resources on it, and we need to help them. And even H&M, who was a big player, who's the second largest apparel company in the world, they took part in this conference on Wednesday because they can't do it on their own either. So I think this is more about being colleagues than being competitors. And eventually we will be able to tell consumers what to look for. But right now there isn't one label or one signing that they can follow. But I think they should start demanding transparency. And ask the retailers, what is this and where does it come from? And in that sense, do their part. And then what consumers can do one very important thing, and that is to wash in 30 degrees instead of 40.
That's true.
And just lowering your temperatures and using a washing powder that holds enzymes can do the job. And we don't need to wash.
That's similar of Earth Hour as well. Just switching off a light makes a huge difference. It's the same with.
Yeah, I think Eva's making a really important point here, that some of the most hopeful developments in the environmental movement in the past 10 years have been the way the business community in many different countries has taken up this cause and seen it as a challenge to their own capacity to innovate their way out of this problem. While there's still a lot of work to do in many industries, you're seeing more and more leaders. The presence here of large transnationals who fundamentally changed their business practices in order to become more sustainable. And oftentimes, 20 years ago, if you had an environmentalist speaking about this, it was just a theory. Now you can point to a bunch of companies in a bunch of different sectors that have actually done it. And they haven't done it purely out of a sense of altruism. They've done it out of the sense that it's going to be good for their business, and not just from a marketing angle. If you have an energy-intensive business, it's going to save you money if you're using less energy. So we really think that that old debate about this fundamentally being a choice between the environment and the economy is just that. It's an old debate. And the companies that treat this as operational, as an operational issue are going to be the ones that succeed in the future. And we at WWF, we do a lot of work with a lot of different companies to help them along that path. Because as you say, there are a lot of sectors that are in the same boat as the clothing sector right now. People want to do the right thing. They want to change the way they make their goods. They want to change, they want to become more sustainable. But they have a very difficult time taking the first few steps down that path. And I'm glad to hear you say what you said about marketing, because the motto we like to say at WWF Canada is when we work with companies, the doing should come before the talking. And that way you've got a really strong foundation to stand on and make claims from.
I made a column the other day called "In Greed We Trust," because basically that is, well, many will go the easiest way, just like water.
Sure.
And if you make a very clear signal after the hopeful we get an agreement here at the end of the week, but if you make a clear signal that no, we're not going to trust fossil fuels or fossil fuel based industries any longer, I'm sure there'll be a lot of funding waiting to go towards clean tech and green tech. And people will start actually believing that, okay, this is the way it's going to do. Not just the front runners, but everybody. It'll become mainstream.
And whatever your ideological predisposition, you can't deny the innovative capacity of the marketplace, right? And if the right signals are put in the marketplace, things will be done differently.
Exactly.
And it can change can happen really quickly, which is one of the most optimistic things. I always tell this story to illustrate it. I was in university in the early 90s, and I was in the first class from my university where everybody was given an email address. That seems like 1,000 years ago, right? And then my son, who's 3.5 years old, when he was just learning how to talk, I think his 7th word was BlackBerry.
Really?
So that's a span of, largely because he saw me playing with it all the time, and that's what he thought I was doing, playing with it. That's daddy's toy, right? But I say that just to illustrate how quickly things can change. And we can't imagine, you see it at this conference this week, you can't imagine an event like this transpiring before the wireless age, where we're broadcasting live on the web. There are all kinds of civil society gatherings being transmitted all over the world because of this technology. So I think it's, you know, I don't want to sound overly optimistic, but I think in some ways the developments in civil society and the private sector are way, way ahead of where many governments are all over the world. So regardless of what happens here this week, I think there have been positive developments.
Just for, sorry, if anyone's just joined us, we're sitting in the dark because it's Earth Hour. So I just have a question about Earth Hour as well. Once the orb has been given to Ban Ki-moon, where does it go after that? Where's the data going to be retrieved, and who's actually going to see it?
That's a good question. Some of it will be broadcast tonight. It's not going to have a permanent home until we have a deal. Because the way we look at it, it's an incomplete artifact. And that's what it is. It will, we'll have it with us perpetually as a memory of all of the hope that went into creating it in the first place. But it is an incomplete object until we have a final deal. So it will keep collecting stories and images and memories all over the world until we have that deal, and it will follow around until we get one, assuming we don't get one this week.
A haunting globe.
A haunting globe, that's right, that's right.
Point I had before about turning your degrees on your washing machine from 40 to 30 in Europe is equivalent to the extortion of 3 million cars a year.
Yeah, well, that
so the
puts it in perspective.
so it just puts it into perspective, and so why not? And
Well,
it saves your bill, and it saves your clothes. It lasts longer, and you know there's no excuse not to.
Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for today. Let's hope something good comes out of the dark for this Earth Hour today. We'll be back again tomorrow at the normal time with the lights on. So please join us then, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.